Jesus says to his people. He says, you are the salt of the earth. Now, mind you, he was talking about people that were following him. He wasn't talking about governments or doctors or anyone else. Jesus' attention was to the people that followed him. He said, you are the salt of the earth. But if the salt lose its saltedness, how can it be made salty again? And they said back there in Palestine, there was a certain type of salt that was mined, and it had the propensity of losing its savor. And so because any of us would think that, no, we use, salt, and 10 years later it's still salty. But the type they were using was one that could lose its saltiness. And we know that salt is a preserver. So Jesus said, how can it be made salty again? It's no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot. And he goes on in contingent in the 14th verse. He said, you are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on a stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. Now, this salt and this light is influence. And Jesus is telling his people that you are the ones that influence the world. He didn't say a country. He said, you are the light of the world. Mm. You are the salt of the earth and the world, the entire earth, the entire world. And here's a story here about President Woodrow Wilson, who told this story. He said, I was in a very common place. I was sitting in a barber's chair when I became aware that a personality had entered the room. A man had come quietly in upon the same errand as myself, to have his hair cut, and sat in a chair next to me. Every word the man uttered, though it was not in the least didactic, showed a personal interest in the man who was serving him. And before I got through with what was being done for me, I was aware that I had attended an evangelistic service because Mr. D.L. Moody was in the chair. Mm. And this is what President Wilson continued. He said, I purposely lingered in the room after he had left and noted the singular effect that his visit had brought upon the barbershop. They talked in undertones. They didn't know his name, but they knew that something had elevated their thoughts. And I felt that I left that place as I should have left the place of worship. My admiration and esteem for Mr. Moody became very deep indeed. Influence. This is another gentleman. Andrew Murray evidently lived a holy life before his children, a great man of God, and about the effect he had on his children. And the biographer said 11 of his children grew to adult life. 5 of the 6 sons became ministers of the gospel of Jesus Christ. 4 of his daughters became ministers' wives. Not bad, 9 out of 11. Even the second generation made a good showing. 10 grandsons became ministers of Christ, and 13 became missionaries. What's the message that we leave the world? Mm. When you pass by, what are we saying? No human being can come into this world without increasing or diminishing the sum total of human happiness, not only of the present, but of every subsequent age of humanity. No one can detach himself from this connection. There is no sequestered spot in the universe, no dark niche along the disk of non-existence to which he can retreat from his relationships to others. Where he can withdraw his influence of his existence upon the moral destiny of the world. Everywhere his presence or absence will be felt. Everywhere he will have companions who will be better or worse because of him. It is an old saying and one of the fearful and statements of import that we are forming character for eternity. And this forming character, is it ours or others? It's both. And in that fact lies the pearl and the responsibility of our existence. Who is sufficient for the thought? Thousands of my fellow beings will yearly enter eternity with character differing from those they would have carried had I never lived. The sunlight of that world will reveal my finger mark on their primary formation and in their successive strata of thoughts of life. This is precisely what Jesus is saying. He's talking about influence. He's talking about how you and I affect the world. And in the Sermon on the Mount, the point he is saying, you who are characterized by beatitudes, quality of life, you who are the sons and daughters of the kingdom, are the salt and the light of the world, to influence the world for good and for God. Our Lord is calling on us to influence the world we live in, just as he was those disciples gathered with him as he preached to the multitude. That's a job that we have. And I just want to, reinforce and just, if we wear the cloth of Christianity, that's the only cloak we can wear. Right. We don't need to get down in division. We don't need to get down with politics. We need to be of one mind. Even though all these things are happening around us, I say today that this is the best time ever to be a Christian, because Amen. So much has changed and people are looking for answers, and we have to be the one to give the answers. We have to be the salt of the earth. We're the ones that have to influence that. We have to be the light of the world. And so I just asked all of us who wear the faith, that every morning that we get up, pray, God, how you can use me to preserve this world I live in. Father, how can you help me to see a nation, a country that I love that's being divided? When the Pharisees accused Jesus of casting these demons out by Beelzebub, Jesus is told a truth. He said, a house divided against itself cannot stand. That was his answer when they said, you're casting these demons out by Satan. Jesus said, any house that's divided cannot stand. And so, it's not going to be a government. It's not going to be anyone else. We are the light of this world. And we ourselves have to magnify the light that Jesus is, and that we reflect that light. We're the ones that have to preserve this nation, through the saltiness that we have. And I just implore and encourage each of us, to make that your daily goal. This profession we're doing, this investing we're doing, all that sounds good. But if we have a house that's divided and starts to crumble, everything that we have as assets falls down with it at the same time. So even from a selfish point of view, I encourage you today to be the light of the world. Be the salt that does not lose its savor. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, you are wise, Father, you are God, and your providence is always consistent. Nothing happens that will be a surprise to you. But Father, you have given your people a calling and a purpose in life to be what the world itself cannot solve. The problems that the world has, there is no solution. The only solution that the world has, Father, is your light and your salt. Help us, Father, to wear those banners. Help us to wear those cloaks. Help us to be mindful in where we are and what we say and what we do. Any opportunity we have, give us that strength and discernment to lift you up, Father, and tell your story, whether anyone wants to hear it or not. Tell your story. If no one listens, Father, we are accountable for their receptiveness. We are accountable for speaking the truth in love. And so, Father, give us that strength, give us that wisdom, give us that understanding. And we lift you up today in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Tom, as usual, that was just awesome. We've got thumbs up going on all over here and people saying thank you, thank you. That was just awesome and so right on. You know, I wish that people would just stop talking and start acting. It's our actions that we should be judged by. Not only our words, but by our actions and what we do. I had a guy call me yesterday for a loan, and he's experienced, been doing fix and flips for 5 years, and you know is doing well at it. And our conversation switched to, because you know when you do fix and flips, it's eat money, you're getting income, but it's not building wealth. And that's what I got into start talking with him about. And he's in an area where I have a lot of collective genius friends that live there. And I, you know, told him I'd introduce him to some of my collective genius friends that are now doing apartments and, you know, doing some buy and hold stuff just so they could meet and, you know, he could learn from them. And after we had that conversation, he says to me, "Why are you doing this? I called you for a loan, and you're spending all this time talking to me about building my business and changing my model and you know, taking my income and building wealth. Why are you doing this?" I said, "Because I love my neighbor." It was sad that he questioned my motive of why I was just trying to share with him what I knew. You know, it's just, so it's little things like that we all can do every day. You know, when we're going to buy a house and we're negotiating a deal, if our concern is more for the seller and making sure that they've got a real benefit with what you're doing, you know, it just all seems to work out better, you know, for everybody involved. So I love what you're sharing. Thank you so much, Tom. It's always, you always are right on with everything you say. Thank you so much. So I want to take this opportunity to mention again about John's Family Restaurant. You know, we want to get back to meeting at the restaurant, but you know, because of the virus and things going on, John has asked us to just hold off for a while. So we're going to do that. And you know, which is not a problem because these Zoom meetings have turned out to be just such an incredible blessing. And today our blessing comes to us by the name of Paul White. Paul is a great guy. He runs in the same circles that I do. He's a friend of Tom Olson. Most of you have met Tom. Tom's been on speaking with us a couple times. And he's a member of the Good Success group. You are a member of Good Success, right, Paul? That's what I thought. Are you muted still?
I don't think so. Can you hear me?
Great. Yes, I can hear you. That's great. So, but Paul has just a wonderful journey, a story that he can share with us. He's a big time believer. And he's taken lemons and turned them into lemonade. Has a great program, an accounting program. You know, me in accounting, I've got this steel door that just comes down in front of me and all I hear is wah, 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 which is not good for someone that's a finance lender. But I have great people around me that speak accounting that can disseminate it into a third grade language for me. So it works out really well. But yeah, I really am thrilled that, Paul, you're on vacation now, right?
I am.
Now, how is that for dedication? And I asked him at the last minute. You folks know that I'm really bad about that. So I invited him at the last minute, and he's gracious enough to get up very, very early on his vacation and share his story with us and talk to us about his product as well, called Real Numbers, and that numbers ends in a Z. So Paul, without any more delay, I'm introducing you to our Sonrisers group. We're glad to have you. Thanks so much.
That's awesome. Thank you. Tom, I was so blessed by your words. That was really good. You know, Satan is a liar and a deceiver, and he'd like nothing more than to divide all of us. And so that's, I can't, my screen share work, and it says disabled. I was going to share that. I'm sorry. I don't know if you can enable
you want to
me
share
or-
your screen?
Yeah, that's my understanding. I was going to.
Yes, you can. And I am looking for the ability. Let me see this thing. I need to there. Now you should be able to.
Okay, great. Thank you. Oh, yeah. So anyway, as you were saying, you know, Satan would like nothing more than to divide all of us. And so let me see if I can get my screen up here. Can y'all see that? Is that
Yes.
screen's
yes.
on? Everybody can see that? Okay. And I started thinking about where we are, and I agree with you, Tom. As a matter of fact, I was listening to a pastor a while back, and he was talking about salt, and he said salt was so precious that people got paid in salt, and that's where the word salary came from. And so if you weren't worth your salt, I guess you weren't you weren't such a good employee. But a couple passages came to mind for me that are coming up over and over. And one of these things I think we have to be careful of is that I think there can be a lot of pride, and there can be a lot of idolatry in holding up any one group of people above others. And so I love this passage from Isaiah, and it says, these are the ones I look on with favor, those who are humble and contrite in spirit and who tremble at my word. And that is such a key, I think, to understand how important God's word is. And then this is the one that, you know, it's from Ephesians 2, and you talked about we're new in Christ, and it says, and we love that first part of the passage. We don't read the second part, and that is from 14. It says, for he himself is our peace, who has made the two groups one and has destroyed the barrier, the dividing wall of hostility, by setting aside in his flesh the law with its commands and regulations. His purpose was to create in himself one new humanity out of the two, thus making peace, and in one body to reconcile both of them to God through the cross, by which he put to death their hostility. He came and preached peace to you who are far away and peace to those who were near. But through him, we both have access to the Spirit, to the Father by one Spirit. So I think that should be our prayer for unity, and unity through Christ and nothing else. So that would be my add-on to Tom. But thank you so much for blessing me, Tom, and I'm sure everybody else.
Amen.
So this is
Thank
me.
you.
So, you know, I'm pretty close to you guys. I'm up in Virginia, and this is basically my family. And this is what I do. And I'm a recovering orthodontist, you know, and this is where I spend most of my time. And the two places that I haven't been lately are my church and the gym. So I look forward to returning to both of those. So hopefully that won't be too much. You'll find me, and sometimes Wednesday nights. And so there's a group of us that meet with guys in recovery out of prison, and I won't go into the details, but that little Batman flash up at the top was, for a long time, I would go to this group and just sort of audit the class, right? I wasn't really serious about, I mean, I was saved and I had faith, but I wasn't really taking my faith seriously. And so a guy that came to speak to us one time years ago was a guy who played football for Bear Bryant, and he was a no-nonsense kind of guy. And I sent him sort of a whiny email one time about how I'm having trouble making time for my faith, for God and all my faith, because, you know, work is busy and I've got all these things going on. He had been talking about the Sombrero Galaxy, which is 1 billion light years away, and it has 1 billion stars in it. And he would say, don't tell me there's no God, you know? And so I sent him this sort of mamby-pamby email, and he sent me back and says, don't tell me you don't have time for the God of the universe. He said, Sombrero Galaxy, hello. He said, get on your face and repent. And from that day forward, a light bulb went off, and it said, all right, well, if you still want to go to the gym at 5:30 in the morning, you still want to do all your stuff, well, you're going to move that clock back. And so I set my clock back to 4:30. and even earlier than that some days. And that has been the greatest blessing of my life. And God has changed my life in ways that I couldn't imagine just by reading his word. It's as simple as that. You know, scripture is sufficient for everything that we need, but we have to know what it says. Otherwise, we will be deceived. So I would encourage you, you know, great thing about COVID, I can sleep into 5 now, so because the gym's not open. So anyway, these guys have my heart, and I look forward to when we can meet again. So, Wendy, you know, thank you for allowing us to, allowing me to talk to you guys. You know, I never have any problem not being the smartest person in the room, and I guess in this case, the virtual room. And so, you know, I'm really unqualified to speak to a group of real estate professionals. So now I'm speaking to you guys today as a passive real estate investor. And as a matter of fact, I know I'm not a flipper for sure, because I had to put a new top on our well pump yesterday. And you know, the old saying that you guys know well is measure twice and cut once. Well, I had to make another trip back to the to the lumber yard and get another piece of salt treated 1/2-inch plywood yesterday, and that project took most of a day. So I would starve if I had to flip a house. So, but I just want to tell you a little bit about how I got started in real estate and what I've discovered on my journey. So, you know, Warren Buffett famously said, if you don't find a way to earn while you sleep, you'll work till you die. And that's basically what you're telling this guy, Wendy. And you know, in order for me to have income right now, I got to be working. I got to have my hands in somebody's mouth, which may sound gross to some of you guys. And you know, I can't go anywhere any longer than about 10 days because there's no money coming in. So my goal as a real estate investor has been to develop a lifestyle business where I can be anywhere I want and still be making money to support all my habits. And so, as you were telling that young man yesterday, Wendy, wealth versus income, and that was the aha moment for me when I understood the difference between those things. And I'm sort of in the slow reading group, so it took me a while to understand that. And so after a lot of searching, I understood what you guys already know, and that's, you know, real estate's the best way to build wealth. And so this is the kind of stuff I was taught. And so there are a lot of mindset changes that a lot of us have to make. And I was in that damn Dave Ramsey sort of mode. It's just not a path to freedom. And that is, you know, to save your money, get out of debt, and, you know, give all your money to someone who knows less than you about anything. Give him your money and let him invest it for you. And of course, the only person that made any money on that deal was my real estate, my stockbroker. So, you know, I spent a lot of money in the stock market and didn't get a lot out of it. As a matter of fact, I called my investor one time when I understood this concept and said, so how much money, passive investment, are we throwing off? And it was enough to maybe go a month in my burn rate. And so I was like, something has to change. And so, you know, when I started investing in real estate, I was feeling really good about myself and my financial future, because for the first time in my life, I'd taken control of my retirement. You know, I'd become my retirement investor, and it just felt great, at least for a little while. And then the trouble started coming in. So in the middle of a busy day of seeing patients, I was getting emails requesting additional funds and wiring this and verifications of account questions. And, you know, here I was thinking that, you know, all this mailbox money that was going to be coming in was going to be great. And in reality, I was starting to realize that passive income was anything but passive. So I quickly went about just sort of building my real estate empire, you know, and acquiring, you know, several single family homes and a few small multifamilies, and started doing some private lending. And, you know, after the acquisition dust had sort of settled, I started noticing there were some challenges in managing my portfolio. And so, you know, I had organized my investments. And so, you know, I didn't really have a problem with a messy desk, because my messy desk was a pool table. And so the reality had come for me that you really can't have a lifestyle business in the midst of all this chaos. And so as I acquired more assets, it became difficult to find enough time to manage all this stuff, because many of us are, you know, are trying to get rid of a full-time job and invest in real estate, but this transition can be really time. And it's really difficult to make any smart decision if you don't have the right information, or in my case, any information. And so as dentists and doctors and professionals, we tend to just trust everybody. So if a broker tells me I'm gonna get a 75% return, we believe them, you know, and we have to be careful. So, you know, an income uncertainty can arise from things like late payments or unexpected expenses or vacancies or tenant acquisition and rent ready. And these are just a few of the things that can impact your cash flow. And even cash flow is not always enough, because many investors have a portfolio that's performing well enough to provide sufficient cash flow, but underneath all that, cash flow can mask or hide underperforming assets. And what's interesting to me is I've gone around the country a lot of the professionals, and a lot of you guys are in this case where you have people that do stuff for you. But it surprises me that they only look at cash flow month to month, and they never look at numbers until the end of the year when they get ready for tax reporting. And so, there's an opportunity I think that's missing, because if you have an underperforming asset that's being hidden by this, you don't even find out till the end of the year. And by the time you find out you got to do something with this asset, it takes another few more months to actually do something with that asset, either sell it or do something to improve the efficiency. And so you've lost a good part of a year where you've had an underperforming asset, which then drags down your whole portfolio. So I really searched for the best way to maximize my real estate portfolio, and I discovered that the three most important things, and of course, organization is one. You just have to be organized, because if you're not organized, you're not going to be efficient. And of course, the bottom line, it's impossible to know how your investments are performing if you don't know your numbers. And maximizing your time management will lead to greater and more predictable profits. And so these are the things that you want to do. And so, like I said, many of us that are transitioning from real estate investing, we don't have a lot of free time. And so we need to have enough time to devote to managing our investments and even to find other deals. And so, like you, Wendy, these things intimidate the heck out of me. I'm not a big math guy, I like numbers, but for some reason, these things. So again, I had a problem, and I started asking my investing friends what they were doing to organize and manage their investment portfolio. I started in real estate with a mastermind with a bunch of dentists and doctors and other professionals, and I started asking these guys, what are you doing to keep all this together? And I was shocked, but most of them were doing nothing, which is about what I was doing. At least I had a pool table, I guess. And occasionally the other engineers said Excel. And when I asked what kind of spreadsheet design they were using, one guy would say, well, I found this one on the internet. Another guy said, a friend of my brother-in-law gave me this one. What I noticed was there's no continuity in any of this stuff. And, we organized like things lined up nice and neat. And so, and spreadsheets were great in the 90s, but nowadays most businesses use industry-specific software. And so we must remember, Excel wasn't designed for real estate. And so if there's better stuff out there, we have to sort of think about it, because there's a certain laziness to using the same system we've always used just because we're used to it. And it's easy to forget that time is money. And if there's a better software that can make this more efficient, we sort of have to change our thinking. Again, a mindset change is what we need. And so, as I struggled to find the best way to organize my portfolio, I asked my son, who's a programmer, I said, can you help me? And I said, can you make me a spreadsheet? And so he started asking me all the things I wanted to do. I was getting frustrated. He said, look, what do you want to do? And I gave him all the list of things that I wanted to do. And he goes, spreadsheets can't do all this stuff, Dad. He said, you need an app. And I went, okay. I had no idea what an app was. And so he said, that's how our software began, Real Numbers. And so, we designed this software to be first and foremost just something that was user-friendly. Somebody like me that doesn't like numbers, and it was interactive, and it could be any real estate investor, whether you're, experienced or new to the game. And so the goal was to organize and analyze all of our investments in one place with the least amount of time possible. And in that picture below, one of us has a tooth that's sharpied out, and one of us is actually missing a tooth. I won't tell you what, but it was a lacrosse one of it. So finding great tech tools can dramatically streamline your workload and improve your efficiency. And that's really the bottom line of what I was trying to accomplish. And again, it's all about creating more free time so that you have time to find more deals or just do the things that you want to do. And so let's talk about these areas about how we use technology to supercharge our portfolios. And so, obviously there are many benefits to a well-organized real estate portfolio, but if you haven't taken the time to organize your real estate investment, then think about the consequences. In other words, if you have a disorganized portfolio, you're losing profits, you're more stressed in managing your investments, and you're more likely to run into legal or tax problems at some point down the road. And so I found that a lack of organization is pretty common for a lot of investors. And so, when we first started all this, we started surveying people and some of our beta users and what are their pain points with investing. And so one of our surveys made it clear that 3 out of the top 5 challenges that many real estate investors have center around portfolio management. So, it's really important that we have everything that we can access in one location and anywhere around the world on any device. And so that's really the point of what we're trying to create. And so in our app, Real Numbers, we organize investments in 4 main categories. Real property, which could be anything you're familiar with, single family, multifamily, self-storage, all those things. Private lending, mortgage notes, and then funds and syndications. And so this is one of our property cards, and so from our app. And so everything you need to know about an asset is stored in the app in one place, and you can access and download any docs on any device from anywhere at any time. And so these are the kind of things you can't do with a spreadsheet. So on this asset card, I don't know if my mouse shows or not, but on the left side is the property description and some of the things that you've got. On the right are some analytics and other things that you want to know. And across the bottom is sort of what I call this horizontal menu, where it gives all the things you can have. So there's a ledger, and every asset, there's a general ledger for the entire app that includes all of your assets. And then this is an individual asset ledger that you can look at all the expenses and income and all those kind of things that you would normally look at. There's some analysis that's driven by that ledger, and then there's just built-in functionality where you can stress test this asset with an iPro forma. All the images are stored for your property. All the docs, all the security instruments, and everything are right there. And that came in handy for me, and I'll tell you a little bit about it later. And so now that all my assets are organized in one place, like, and I can access anytime and anywhere, I can play pool again, which is kind of nice, because for a long time it was full of full of paper. So, the next key to efficiently managing a real estate investment is using your time efficiently. And so that's the biggest challenge that most of our users were facing was, how to manage this stuff and have enough time. And so really, just bite the bullet and take the time needed to stay on top of your portfolio, or you can punt it, just ignore it. And surprisingly, a lot of investors that I've met choose option B, and they just don't do these things. And I think that leads to bigger problems. So that's been my mission, is to understand that differently. So in the survey, the typical passive real estate investor, if they actually chose to manage their investments, because some don't, they spend approximately 2 to 10 hours per week on average to manage their investments. And, if you have larger portfolios, that can take a lot longer. But as I mentioned, a significant number of investors that I've met, don't even track their investments. And of course, that can lead to a poor portfolio performance. We had one guy that paid a bookkeeper and accountant $1,000 a month to keep track of his investments. And I was just like blown out of the water that was, that he was doing that. But it was just his way to say, I don't want to do it, so I pay somebody else to do it. And so, many of you know, passive real estate investing can be anything but passive. And so, there are a lot of nagging questions that can be stressful for amateur investors, and they take a lot of time finding answers. It's the highest and best use of an investor's time. And I'm still amazed at the investors that I've met that have no clue how their portfolio is performing, and they simply don't take the time or don't want to take the time to find out what these answers are. And so I think it's really important to be on top of these important events such as rental payments and tax payments and insurance and all these things. You can certainly maintain these on a calendar, but each one of these occurring events that you put on the calendar, you have to put on a new calendar every time the year changes. So you can use something like Google Calendar, but wouldn't it be great if you had each of these investments would be automated automatically for you? And so, of course, our asset does this. It has Real Numbers has a reminder system where you can actually put things in there if you want to. So I actually I got a reminder one time on my phone. I was out somewhere and it said that I had a late rent payment, but it was only $50. And I went, well, that's kind of weird. And so, of course, I could pull up the document. So I pulled up the lease on that property, and I think I was out. I can't even remember where I was. And it turned out that on that lease, that the tenant had renewed their lease. The rent had gone up by $50 a month, and they had paid the old amount. And when I called my property manager, they said they didn't even know that. So that would have gone on for the entire year. That's $600, maybe not significant for one property, but if you got a lot of properties, those numbers can start to add up. And what's really cool is these reminders can alert you when your investments are coming due. So especially if you do private lending or you do mortgages, it will start sending you reminders at 30 days out when this thing is coming due. So you can start having conversations with your borrower about what they plan to do and where they're going to re-up. And so I recently had this conversation with a borrower, and they wanted to extend for another 90 days. And so we're happy to do that. And so I look like I'm on top of my game, and I had no clue until this alert comes up whether that was coming due or not. Otherwise, I'd have to search my investments constantly, look through spreadsheets and do things like that. And I don't want to spend my time doing those things. So let's talk about analytics, because if I ask you guys, show of hands, right now, how many of you could give me an ROI for your entire portfolio or each of your individual assets? I always see there's maybe one or two in a group if they know that much. And so, and I put because it's a Bible study, I put that thou shalt know thy numbers, because it's one of the things I think that gets skipped so much, and it's really important. And this is what I'm really on my warpath, is just let people know this is something that needs to be done, because if we're going to be successful, this thing is not negotiable. You must know your numbers. And so, and here's what's interesting. In that same survey of these 9 criteria of challenges or pain points that people had, the performance of your assets, these inaccurate or non-existent analytics, it was number 6 out of 9. So in other words, people just didn't really care whether they, or just didn't make it a priority how they knew their numbers. And this is what I thought, this is what I find when I go talk to investors. This is what I see so many times. And so, and it makes me nervous. And so, I don't know if you guys have seen this advertisement. There's this thing called NetSuite. It's an Oracle product. And it said, if you don't know your numbers, you don't know your business. And so in my experience, too many investors treat their investments like a hobby and not like a business. And there's no way that you can predictably reach your freedom goal if you don't know your numbers. And so, as I tell you, as I travel around, people either don't know the number or they repeat some number that some house flipper gave them as what they're going to get for a return. And that can lead to consequences that are pretty devastating. So there are lots of consequences to not knowing your numbers, and it can be devastating to your portfolio. I'm sure it's not true of this group, but as I go around, I see that. So, and a few years ago, a dentist friend of mine had a dramatic epiphany, and when you know this guy, but I asked him, I said if he knew his numbers, because I was behind him and I wanted to know what kind of returns he was getting to see if I should put my money into these same things. And he had about $3 million invested. So that's a big number. And, he was an older guy and he'd saved his money for a long time. And I wanted to know what he was doing with his money. And he really didn't know. And so I said, don't you think you ought to know? And he said, yeah, I guess. And so he really, with his son, got together and used a spreadsheet to figure this out. And you can imagine his shock when it turns out that his 15% return that he'd been promised was really a 3.7% return. And for all you math whizzes, that's a $330,000 difference annually between what he thought he was getting and what he was actually getting. And so that should be a wake-up call. Now, we don't all have $3 million portfolios, but that kind of performance discrepancy can really affect your investments. And so, a dashboard will let you see an at-a-glance view of how everything are performing. And so this is one of the versions of our dashboard. It's changed since I really put this together, but there are a couple cool things. This reminder system will alert you whenever there's a problem, when something's coming due or there's something that needs your attention, and it'll show up on your desktop, or it'll show up on your phone as well, your mobile as well. And then there's sort of a global overview of how all of your asset buckets are doing in one. So it will give you a portfolio ROI and not just an individual asset. So it'll give you a portfolio, it'll asset class ROI, and it'll give you individual ROI. So it really gives you an idea of what's going on. So we're building this weighted average portfolio ROI. You can know how things are. You need to put more attention, or something that needs our attention, or maybe a place where we need to put more of our money. So, and that's the thing that we're building towards now. And so there's a general ledger, like I said, for the entire portfolio, and each asset has its own individual asset ledger to track income and expenses. So that powers the analytics, and we're setting up to do tax reporting as well. And so I'm curious, I know I can't see you guys now, but which one of these things is the hardest for you? Organization, analysis, analytics for your properties, or time management, And so these really are the areas that must be maximized in order to supercharge your portfolio. And so I'll give you a little rundown of our portfolio. So one of the coolest things was I was doing a turnkey friend of mine, and when I got down to the property had closed, I had a tenant in place. We had finally developed the software, and it turned out I had spent $8,000 more than the rehab budget, and I had no clue. And so, and those guys, it turns out it was for windows, and not that I wouldn't have approved that, but I would have liked to have been involved in the conversation. And so now we have a rehab tracker that not only keeps track of the deposits you made, but the draws against that, and then keeps track of it on your ledger, so you know exactly what's going on. So if they had called me after I'd had this development, I would have said, hey, you know, you've already spent all your money. Why are you asking for more money? And I would have had a conversation about whether that was a wise thing to do or not, and made a decision whether that was a good investment for that particular asset. And it's pretty cool. The automation for us, I don't know how many of you guys do private lending. I know Wendy does, and I would encourage you to do that. It's a great, you know, being in the bank is a great way to sort of supercharge your portfolio as well. Mm-hmm. But I got a call one day while I was seeing patients, and they said, look, we need to close this thing pretty quickly. We want to close it today or tomorrow. Can you verify this payoff? And I had no clue, so I just said, yeah, it's right. Well, it turns out it was about $1,000 off. And so that really sort of upset me, because once the deal was done, there's nothing I could do about it. So we created this payoff thing for it. So again, we track private lending. And so one of the cool features is this payoff thing. So when I finally had it, before I automated, I had to go home, go to the pool table, find the asset folder, go into the folder, find the, I think it was the pocket, the one I was looking for, and that promissory note, do the math, then go into my self-directed IRA, sign in, find that asset, and look at how much money I'd received to date, and then subtract it to, and then come up with this instantaneous number, which took about 5 hours after it was all said and done. And so now all we have to do with our automated software is just pick a date, and it will automatically track how much money you've received, whether you've received any of your capital back, and all the payments. And in less than a second, it will give you a payoff. And I had 5 lending deals close in January, and every one of them was wrong. And to my favor, because this thing is spot on. It counts both ends of the days that you lend the money, and then all the money in between. So really, without a hassle, it saved me a lot of money and paid for itself. And so the best part, there's no math. I don't know how you do well, but I use those as well. And so there's an amortization table that's created specific for your particular asset. And really, there's 2 things you can do with a note: either keep it, just receive the funds, or you can sell the note, or you can sell a partial note. And so if you're selling a partial, it'll determine for you what amount of payments you'll have to sell to be able to achieve the number that you want. And not only does it do that, but it also tracks, if you sell the partial, you see where it says execute the sale. If you sell the partial, it'll keep track. It'll ask you the specifics on who you sold the partial to. It will keep track of all those contact information, and it will also send you a reminder when the note is coming back to you. So if it's 10 years from now, you don't have to worry about it. A month from 9 years and 11 months, it will send you a reminder that this note is coming back to you, and you can start preparing for what you're going to do about it. And then the other thing you can do with it is borrow money. And so it will settle a note for you, and then it'll also give you a spread for that note. So you can, have a note and then borrow money against that to do other things. So you don't have to sell the thing, you hang on to it, and then play the spread, and then invest the loan that you're taking out against it as a way to turbocharge that investment, keep a spread, and then go buy another investment with that. So it's a really good way to sort of manage those things. And then it does, as I mentioned, have a pro forma. And I did a thing about, with all this COVID, what if I have to go without, rental income? And how long I go? What if I have financing with it? And so you can change all the scenarios with these assumptions, and then look at what the impacts are instantaneously. And of course, it's tied to Zillow, so you don't have to go to the internet and go looking for things. It does it for you automatically. And then it can connect to any of your bank accounts. So one of the cool things is we can connect securely to a bank account, any one that you want, and then it will pull that information in from that account and then tie it in, and then it'll show up on your general ledger, and then you can select those transactions and decide which one works for you and put it to which asset. And again, it's just a way for things to happen more automatically. We started and we trained somebody to do that, but one of the things we found like better was to be able to help themselves. So if you have somebody working for you, you can set up a sub account for them, and it's a data entry sub account. So all it does is you can put whatever information you put. They create an asset for you, or they can just do the income and expenses for that particular thing. And all they can see is what you put in front of them. They can't see any of your accounts. They can't see any of your money that's coming in. They can't see your dashboard. They can't see any of that. It's just data entry. And people would really like doing that. So it streamlines their time involved with the app as well. So these are all the features that you can do with real numbers, and you can do it anywhere you want, and anywhere there's an internet connection. So it really helps with this freedom lifestyle that I'm trying to develop, and I think a lot of us are trying to develop. You can be on vacation, still do these things, and I have a lot. So, you know, when you're considering the best way to manage your real estate portfolio, the question you should really ask is, what's your time worth? And really, more importantly, is what's your peace of mind worth? And, you know, real numbers, since we have this reminder system, you don't have to constantly worry. So it's a godsend for me, and I'm so proud of it because my son built this thing, and I got to get back some of my tuition money that I invested in him years ago. So so that's really where I am, and this is my ask. I'm curious for you guys. I just need a favor. What are your real estate pain points, or the guys that are investing in your services? What do they complain about? Because we're trying to build this thing big enough that we can get. You know, we can answer those things for people. And so this has saved me thousands of dollars. And so, you know, our challenge has been that, you know, we're just now getting started marketing it, and we're just not getting a lot of people responding to it. So my question, of course, to you, you know, funnels and Facebook are great, but I'm convinced that the early growth of our app is doing these kind of things. And that is just to be, you know, is from referrals and from one-on-ones to become more of a commodity. So one of the things I'd like to know is, who do you know that should be using this thing, either a coach or an individual investor? And I would appreciate if you could share them to me. So that's my speech. And then, you know, if you go to our website, there's a free trial, a 14-day free trial. And if you have any questions and want to talk or want to do a demo, I'm happy to talk to you about that. So anyway, that's enough wind, Wendy. I hope that was 20. I hope I didn't go too long on that. So.
Oh my goodness. I'm telling you, I'm amazed. I've never seen a product that's that robust. You've included everything.
Yeah, we're still building. You know what's funny in the software world, and again, I am not tech savvy in any way. I mean, spreadsheets intimidate the heck out of me. And so I like easy stuff like this, but you know, in the tech world, they call it wireframing, when you map out all these great things. And so I call it wireframing when I write down all the things. It's really cool. It comes out of my head and onto the screen, and my son does all the work, you know, and I call it wireframing. He goes, Dad, you're just writing a bunch of crap down on a piece of paper. You know, I've got this long runway of all these things more that I wanted to do. And so we're just trying to get an idea of who we're writing for. And you know, you want to know and get feedback from your clients as to what you would want. So we're looking to that stage right now before we execute a lot more, but I got a lot more planned. So.
Well, it's the other thing that amazes me, and I'm going to stop the screen sharing because we've got questions coming in the chat too. But what really amazes me is that you've covered from a lender point of view, you've got a wholesaler point of view, you've got the fix and flip point of view, you've got the buy and hold point of view, you've even got notes and the partials, how they can be set up. It's amazing. It is really, I'm telling you, Paul, I'm absolutely blown away. You know, I've heard about it, but I had no idea that it would do all these things. I'm just absolutely shocked. And I have several questions myself. You know, gosh, how much is this going to set me back? How many people is it going to take for me to upload all the information that I need to upload? Does it talk to QuickBooks? You know, so spew with some of that.
Okay. All software comes out of a need. So this was just a need that I had, and I just, you know, asked my son if he'd help me with it. And I started noticing a lot of people I meet, almost everybody I meet, has the same problem. So that's why I said, well, you know, maybe we should make this available to everybody. So my mission is to say, look, you can know your numbers and you know all these things with a little bit of effort, not much. And I think as years go on, it's going to get even easier. But you know, the challenge, the setup is getting things set up is the hardest part, I think. But like a lot of people have said, well, that was a little bit of work, but golly, the information I got once it was done was incredible. So it was well worth the effort. So I guess that's the carrot that we dangle in front of everybody is once you get it set up, it's sort of, you know, is you put yourself in a routine. I spend about, you know, an hour, 2 hours a month doing this stuff. And I just sort of sit down and I do it a little bit more thoroughly because I really want to know. And my eyes were really opened when I started doing, the transactions, I could see the way property managers were dealing with my property and money was coming in and out of my account. And I had no idea before. I never looked, and I had a lot of questions after that. And they started knowing that I was watching them. And I started noticing the change in the way that they accounted for my investments and the way they handle it. It's a pretty cool thing to take that screenshot and send it to a borrower and say, hey, look, this asset's coming due in 30 days. What do you want to do? And, and it said, look, we can extend this another 90 days for a couple points. And, I started looking like a professional, and I'm just an orthodontist, and so it's a way that they take you a lot more seriously. And so they started giving me more deals, and it was kind of cool. So
does it talk to QuickBooks?
This sort of has QuickBooks in a roundabout way now, and automatically one of the days I think it will. You can upload spreadsheets, CSVs, and you can export spreadsheets. But as you know, with any kind of import or export, if you have an S on the end of a word in a field that's not right, it'll lock it up. So you have to be very specific. So one of the things when you upload a spreadsheet, it'll give you an example of the fields that should be there. But it's built on QuickBooks functionality. I mean, you've heard of, remember Coming to America, that movie where it says McDowell's, and they had the McDonald's, handbook out there. So we sort of looked at QuickBooks as far as functionality goes. So a lot of it's really similar to QuickBooks. And right now that it's a manual transfer, but I think one day we're going to be looking at APIs that will sort of do a lot of this automatically for us. So there's a long runway in front of this.
So what is the cost? How is your cost set up?
We've broken it down to 5 assets or less, or unlimited assets and the mortgage functionality. 5 assets or less it's like $47 a month, and it's a subscription based. And then unlimited would be $97 a month. So, for the guy that was spending $1,000 a month just to get some numbers and nothing else and not have access to his stuff, he was like, I'll take this all day long, because he was spending a ton of money to do this. So, and we'll end up doing accounting reporting as well, tax reporting as well, probably in the next cycle within the next year to do that as well. So it'll save you some money and some time.
So for $97 a month, I can have the whole kit and caboodle.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty, I mean, we do some software stuff with coaching with some guys, and they said that's not enough money, but I said, look, we just want
sure
people to
it
use
is.
it. So, yeah, that's what everybody says, right? We want to get the word out there that we want to make it as low of our entry as we can, and then have the functionality that you'll be talking like pros. I mean, I literally, if you guys got people, that's easy to do. So I think there's, like I said, a certain, I don't want to call it laziness, but if you already got a system in place, it's hard to change because it's a mindset shift. But you can't, if you're using spreadsheets, they're great, but if you've got spreadsheets on top of spreadsheets and you want to change anything, you've got to go all the way down and change the cells and the formulas from the original one and then go back and change them all. That's too much work. So people just say, well, I'm going to leave it like this because I don't want to change, And there's a lot more stuff that we want to know. And what's cool is our developers can make any kind of change, and it applies universally to everything. So, for all of your assets and for all users. So it's a pretty cool thing.
It is absolutely amazing. I would imagine of some VAs that could be your administrator and input information.
Yeah, we've had one trained but we sort of went away from it because some people are saying, well, I'm a little uncomfortable. Most people aren't, but some are saying I'm uncomfortable with somebody outside the country knowing my stuff. I said, well, you got a teenager can input this stuff for you and have no idea other than the data you're putting right in front of them what you got. So
right.
You can have a trusted employee, So I had friends of mine that said, well, they got people that work for them, as dentists, and they said, well, on a day they're not in the office, they just put some stuff in front of them and they do the data entry for them. So, and it all shows up on his phone as soon as you do it. It's real, everything's real time.
So, and all of this is saved in a cloud, right?
Yes.
And then, so can I have multiple users get into it at the same time?
You can, but they're going to use your same account. So
okay.
to do that. Now, if you create this sub account that I was talking about, that's got a different login and password, which you totally control. You can cut it on or cut it off, and you can change the password. You can do anything. So a lot of guys are using that, and if they decide they don't want to do anything anymore, they just cut their account off, and they can't get into the sub.
Well, and I can decide all of the things that I want my sub account person to be able to see. I can customize that.
Well, right now we've just drawn it as just data entry or something else. So but they can create an account for you. Create an asset for you, which only takes a few minutes. If you've got all the documents in front of you, you can create an asset within a couple minutes. It just doesn't take that long. And
gotcha.
So that's important to just have everything sitting in front of you before. It's just like if you were going to set things up in Excel or whatever, you just want all the documents in front of you. But if they know how to read those documents, it takes no time to do it. And then as far as transactions go, they can just go ahead and do data entry for you, and it only takes a few minutes.
That's amazing. So we've got another question from Wendell. Will this track your cost of mortgage that we are paying and keep the balances even if they are accruing interest?
Yes, we haven't connected the mortgage notes part with the general property yet. You can track a mortgage on your property. There's a functionality to track a mortgage, but it doesn't look at, like, if we make an amortizing table, table for a notes thing, it won't do it for the real estate yet. One of the things that I want to put to it is an owner financing option. So you still hold on to the asset, but then you track all the payments that are coming in and track the performance of the owner financing part that you do. That part's not built yet, but it will track the assets for you. You keep track of your mortgage payments on that as well right now.
Okay, if I want to go and get a loan, can I print out a schedule of real estate for any refinances that I want to do? Does it print those kind of reports?
But that's on our to-do list too. There's so many things you can do with this thing that it goes a long way. But you can export a spreadsheet for the transactions for that, and then that could serve as part of that too. But I want it to be more complete, where you just push a button and it shows you a picture of the asset and the performance of the asset and all that. They're not there yet on that part. But it'll certainly, you can export a CSV from the ledger for it right now.
Okay, so I'm not making up all these questions. I'm really reading them from the chat box over here. So we've got another really great question, and that is, if a group of us were to buy it, all of us buy it, can we get a Zoom tutorial on how to use it? How's the training go?
There's some walkthrough training that we have in there, but I love doing the call, so I'd love to do that. I think it's easier if everybody comes to the call with an asset ready to go, and we just walk through setting one up. I think it's a great way to do it, and I'd love to do that. So,
awesome.
That's probably what I spend most of my time doing now.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I know that I have a lot of people on this call that are very interested, including myself, in purchasing this and getting going. We're all blown away at what we're seeing. It's amazing.
What's fun? What's fun about being in an early version of software, you get to decide with your feedback what you want to see happen next. So it's kind of cool. So, we've got different kinds of users using it. I have real ADD, so I got a little bit of everything going, and so that's why this sort of covers the gamut of everything. But it's new software, so there'll be things that we'll want to improve or not, or this thing that needs to be, changed or altered, or it's got this glitch. But that's what we wanted this to be stress tested, and we want people to really give us their input, say this is great, or this would be cool if it did this, and then you'll add to my laundry list of things that I want to add to it as well. So, but a priority becomes if everybody wants to do X, that's what we do next. So that's what's really cool.
Okay, so you're in Richmond, right?
Yeah.
So you're involved with Jim Ingersoll and all of the Richmond Mafia.
Yeah, yeah. That's great.
We love the Richmond Mafia. We've had several of the Richmond members of Mafia come on and speak with us. We had Jim and Lori Eubanks was speaking with us, and
always great.
It's been,
Lori's so inspirational, isn't she?
She's amazing. She's just amazing with all that she's done. She's in a women's mastermind with me too, and I loved watching her grow.
I watched that too, and it was really cool to see that. So and then there's such camaraderie in the group, because when she announced that I quit my job, everybody goes, awesome, right? Because we're all want the same thing. So it's really cool.
That's really cool. I will tell you this, we've been doing Sonrisers now for almost 18 years.
Wow.
And never have we brought somebody on that it really is there to talk about their product. And because I'm so worried about pushing, we're not about sales. That's not what we're about.
Yeah.
We're really about just education. We broke that rule with you.
Sorry.
And I'm so glad that we did because this was, I'm just amazed at the product and just how incredible it is, how robust it is at this point. And I'm excited to see how it's going to grow. So,
Well, you know, for the longest time, my why was to make orthodontics better in Richmond because I thought there was a better way you could do that. And now that I'm sort of going on to something else, my why is just to help as many investors as I can because I just see a lot of guys out there with their hard-earned money. I mean, you think about how many years it took you to get this stack of money, and you give some guy and it goes away and you don't even know it. I just think that's terrible. So I want to put as many tools that are user-friendly in people's hands so they can act like a pro too and be a pro. So that's really my why. So I always use the example. You remember when you were a little kid and you went to the we used to collect bottles and go cash them in for change, right?
nickel.
And then you go to the drugstore or the grocery store and you buy something and you just hold up your hands and go, is this enough money? And they would take your money from your hands. And that's basically what we do now with stock market. Here's my money, and you can't always trust the guy taking money out of your hands. So I want us to go, yes, I know what money I need you to have and what money's coming back. So it's just a way to empower investors. And that's really what our motivation is.
Yeah. I can't tell you how, and we did it too, how many people fly blind, not really knowing
I did it.
What their numbers are. We talked to somebody just yesterday, Tim Bratz, who was on our Thursday call, our Thursday educational call, and he was doing single families and multifamily, and it took him a couple of years to realize that he spent 10% of his time on his multifamily, and that was bringing in 90% of his income.
Yeah.
And he said, why am I doing this? And I think we all fall into that, where we think we're making a lot of money doing this, and how much time are we really putting into it? Is it worth it? And you don't know that if you don't have that numbers map in front of you.
Well, and you can see trends in real estate, depending on how much money you have invested in that, what kind of return it's giving you versus, there are different classes of properties that's going to give you a different return, and you can decide how much headaches they are or how much they're not. There's a functionality, it's not really built out that well, but you can put notes on the bottom of the asset. And so you sort of keep notes about how many calls they're making, things like that. There's no real CRM functionality to this yet. But again, the sky's sort of the limit. I really had the passive investor in mind. You can do things if you're flipping houses, doing things like that. There may be better software out, but if you're doing all these things at once, there's nothing out there like that. Which is I searched for that first because that's been a lot of work and a lot of long hours trying to get this thing going. And for now, it's just a way. I mean, one of the things that we're doing globally that I really want to know, it's going to take all these different types of assets, give you a weighted average dollar value of all this stuff and say, okay, your entire portfolio is producing 8% or 8.3% or 12% or whatever it is. So if you've got a goal to retire or double your money, the rule of 72 that we all know, let's say in 7 years, well, you got to have a 10% return over your entire portfolio. And, and we'll build in some more functionality about setting goals and things like that. It's not there yet, but that's in my head. And it'll be able to tell you whether you're on track for what you're trying to do. And if you're not, where the problem is. So you can look at your assets and go, well, this one's not performing as well as the other one, so I got to do something with this asset. Right. There's a level of sophistication that I don't think anybody that I know operates at. And I don't think even literally the guys that I know that have 2 or 3 assistants, and this is what they do for a living, they don't look at anything but cash flow. And cash flow is fine, but you can even supercharge your cash flow if you know that I've got this property that's not doing well. I can get rid of this one and buy another one that I know will perform because it meets this criteria. So, there's some functionality for individual assets, but then there's a global view to this thing too. So that's really what I'm trying to build.
Right. It's absolutely amazing. That's just a job
I'm really
well
proud of it.
done.
It's one of those things that I was never, when I coached my kids in all these sports, I was never that dad that said my kids are great. So I was so hard on them, and I know they hated it, but I'm really bragging about my son because he's amazing. I mean, I literally, how your parents said there's new math, that's the new math. I don't know how to do that. Some simple. Well, he opens that computer and there's just ones and zeros and a bunch of code. And I have no idea I'm literally, if somebody held a gun to my head and said, do something, I'd say, shoot me, because I have no clue what that does. So it's pretty amazing.
That's really, really awesome. I just want to thank you again so much. So what I'm going to do is mention again that if people are interested in purchasing this, they need to go to realnumbers.com. And
Yeah, if you want to do a group, if you want to get the numbers to the group together and then send it to me, then we can all have figure out a time that works for best. And if those can't be there, we'll record it and then send it out to whoever. I think it'd be a great way to do it.
I will. I'll send out a group email after this, along with the recording of your video to the whole group again.
Awesome.
So those who were not able to make it can at least watch it, and they might want to join as well. And then we'll come up with a Zoom date that works for you to be able to teach us, and we'll record that too, if that's okay with you, so that the ones that couldn't
Absolutely.
make it can watch it again, because I know I need to hear it over and over again. So I appreciate that. Thank you so very much. You have just been a true blessing for all of us. And I'd like to make sure people know that Adama is the new leader for the Concord subgroup, and they are meeting on Monday, July 13th at 7 p.m. Where are you meeting, Adama?
On Zoom.
You're going to meet on Zoom. So how can they get your link?
Okay. Well, if I get their email address, I can send a link. This is my first Zoom, so I'm just learning, and I just got it together yesterday. So, should I give my email address?
Yes, that's what you would do. Yeah,
Okay.
give your email address, and let's put it in the chat too. So everybody remember, there's a chat over to the, if you look at the bottom of your screen, you see the word chat, click on that. When the chat pops up, down at the bottom right-hand corner of the chat is 3 little dots. When you click on that, the very first option is to save the chat. So you'll have all the questions and everything we talked about will be on the chat as well. What's your email address, Adama? You can speak it too. You're muted though, so you can't speak it.
I got you. Okay. Welcome home. Like you tell somebody, hi, welcome home.
Right.
And then the letters for N like Nancy, F like Frank, P like Peter at gmail.com.
Welcome home, NFP at Gmail.
Yep, the NFP stands for not for profit, so it's easy
Gotcha.
to remember.
Gotcha. That is easy to remember. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So again, we'll see you guys next week for sure. Same time, same place. I will get an email out today that will have a copy of this recorded video. And so you'll have Paul's information, and I want to know if you're interested in being in this group to purchase the product and to be able to do a Zoom call together. That was just a really wonderful gift you're giving us, and we appreciate that, Paul. Thanks.
I'm happy to do it. That I didn't mention, but that's a 30% discount for you guys. So I appreciate y'all doing that. So.
Awesome. Thank you.
Awesome.
We like discounts because we're investors.
Me too.
And can I quickly say the theme is show me the money. Our next few sessions are going to be show you the money, and we have the vice president of First Citizens Bank, and she's got all kind of investor products.
Awesome.
She's got a business line of credit, all kind of stuff. So that's
awesome.
Show me the money. That's what we're
awesome. That's good news to hear. I'm definitely interested in hearing that. Thank you so much. Everybody have a great, wonderful week, and we'll see you again next week. Love you, mean it.
Bye. Love y'all. Thank you.
I got it.